The Age of Curiosity. The 1970s were an age of paradox. On Earth, fear and division lingered. The Cold War split the globe into rival camps, each side armed with weapons capable of ending civilization. Oil shocks rattled economies, political scandals eroded trust, and environmental concerns grew sharper with each passing year. Humanity seemed hemmed in by limits of trust, of resources, of survival itself. And yet, even in that anxious climate, a spirit of daring persisted. If the age was shadowed by rivalry, it was also lit by curiosity. The cosmos became the canvas onto which humanity projected its hopes. It was in this context that the Voyager probes were conceived. To some, they were just machines, metal, circuitry, antennae, but symbolically they carried something greater, the audacity to reach beyond fear. NASA engineers and scientists dared to imagine a mission not bound to Earth, not even bound to the planets, but to the interstellar medium itself. They would send a messenger farther than any object had ever traveled, trusting it to outlast nations, crises, and generations. The timing was fortuitous. A rare alignment of the outer planets offered a gravitational grand tour, a chance to sling a spacecraft from one giant world to another with minimal fuel. The opportunity would not come again for more than a century. To seize it required vision, not just of science, but of imagination. Voyager would be both explorer and ambassador, carrying instruments to probe alien atmospheres and a golden record to speak for Earth. The contrast between earthbound fear and cosmic hope was stark. On the ground, military planners calculated the devastation of nuclear war. In space, engineers plotted the trajectories of planetary flybys. One vision looked inward with dread, the other outward with wonder. Voyager embodied the latter impulse, a declaration that curiosity was stronger than fear, that even in an age of peril, humanity's reach could exceed its grasp. And so, when Voyager 1 and 2 left Earth in 1977, they carried more than cameras and spectrometers. They carried the longing of a species caught between self-destruction and transcendence. Their journeys reflected the dual truth of the era, that humanity was fragile, but also bold, divided, but also united by the dream of exploration. Looking back, the Voyagers are more than relics of Cold War ambition. They are testaments to the age of curiosity that birthed them, an age when, despite fear, humanity dared to ask, what lies beyond? Their launch marked not just the beginning of a mission, but the continuation of a story older than nations, the story of creatures who, though confined to a single world, could imagine the infinite, a machine of memory and message. If Voyager had been only a scientific tool, its significance would already be immense. Its instruments were designed to measure magnetic fields, capture images of alien worlds, and record the faint particles streaming through the solar wind. It was, at its core, a machine of precision, circuits, sensors, antennas, and code-cold, unfeeling metal harnessed for the pursuit of knowledge. Yet the engineers and dreamers behind it gave Voyager something more. They turned a spacecraft into a messenger outfitted with a gift that blurred the line between technology and poetry. The Golden Record. The Golden Record was more than a disc of copper and gold plating. It was a time capsule, a memory, a message in a bottle cast into the ocean of space. On its surface were etched instructions for playback, a roadmap for decoding its grooves. Contained within were 115 images and diagrams, greetings in 55 human languages, sounds of the natural world from the roar of surf to the whisper of wind, and 90 minutes of music spanning cultures and centuries. Bach, Beethoven, Chuck Berry, Navajo chants, gamelan orchestras, the fragments of Earth arranged as a chorus. It was not just science, it was humanity's attempt to say, this is who we are. The contrast was profound. The spacecraft itself was an instrument of logic, a bundle of equations transformed into hardware designed to survive the harshest void. Yet riding aboard was something irrational in the best sense. an act of faith that somewhere, someday, another intelligence might encounter this artifact and know us not by our conflicts but by our capacity for beauty. Where the metal obeyed physics, the record embodied dreams. Where circuits measured planetary magnetospheres, music whispered of longing and love. Critics dismissed it as folly. No alien civilization was likely to find Voyager drifting in the interstellar dark. The odds were infinitesimal, but those odds missed the point. The record was not only for the stars, it was for us. In choosing what to include, humanity confronted itself. What sounds define us? What languages, what images, what fragments of culture best represent Earth? The Golden Record was less an outreach to aliens than a mirror to our species, forcing us to imagine how we might look from the outside. In that way, Voyager became more than an explorer. It became an emissary, carrying not just data but memory, not just instruments but identity. Its cameras could reveal the storms of Jupiter and the rings of Saturn, but its record carried the laughter of children and the heartbeat of a mother. Between these two roles lay the essence of Voyager, the union of science and story, of cold machinery and human warmth. The Golden Record endures as perhaps the most audacious work of art humanity has ever created. Unlike paintings or symphonies, it was not meant for galleries or audiences. It was meant for the cosmos itself. In a time when Earth trembled under nuclear shadows, a fragile probe carried a message of peace, saying to the universe, "We are here, and we can dream." Voyager thus embodies the paradox of exploration. It is at once machine and messenger, tool and testament. Its circuits may fall silent, its instruments grow cold, but the record endures, a fragment of Earth cast into eternity. In the contrast between metal and music lies the heart of its story, that even in our most technical endeavors, we cannot help but send our humanity with us, stitched into every dream that dares to cross the stars. The leaving of Earth. Voyager's departure was unlike any that had come before. Rockets had carried astronauts to orbit, to the moon, and satellites had traced paths around our planet. But all of these journeys were tethered by intention of return or by the pull of Earth's gravity. Voyager was different. It was not designed to circle back, nor to remain in the familiar cradle of the solar system. It was built to leave, to slip the bonds of home forever. In that sense, Voyager was not merely a spacecraft, it was the first true emigrant, carrying with it no hope of return, only the promise of an endless journey outward. This act carried a profound symbolism. For millennia, humanity's movements had been terrestrial migration across continents, navigation across ocean. Even when Apollo astronauts walked on the moon, they were travelers with tickets home. Voyager was no such thing. Once its trajectory carried it past the planets, it entered exile by design, a child of Earth cast into the interstellar sea. It would never again feel the warmth of the sun as it had near its birth. It would never again be heard, except faintly, across the gulf. To launch Voyager was to accept that part of ourselves was leaving forever. There is both pride and sorrow in this. Pride because to send an emissary beyond the solar system is a triumph of imagination, a declaration that human curiosity cannot be confined. Sorrow because in doing so we acknowledged separation. Voyager is ours yet not with us. Like a child grown beyond the reach of its parents, it carries our memory but no longer shares our fate. Its path belongs to the stars now, not to Earth. Philosophically, the leaving of Earth marks a threshold in our story as a species. For the first time, we inscribed ourselves into the larger cosmos in a way that cannot be undone. Long after cities have crumbled and nations have faded, Voyager will continue its silent flight. It is a reminder that while we remain bound to one fragile planet, our presence has already extended beyond it. We are no longer only of Earth, we are of the galaxy. And perhaps this is why Voyager resonates so deeply. It is not simply a machine traveling outward, it is a fragment of humanity in exile, carrying our songs, our greetings, our questions into the infinite. Its journey is a farewell and a promise a recognition that the act of leaving is also the act of becoming more. Voyager does not return our gaze, yet it carries it endlessly into the dark. Jupiter, storms of a god. For millennia, Jupiter was the wandering star of myth, a beacon so bright it inspired gods and kings. To the Romans, it was the thunderer himself, wielder of storms and sovereignty. To ancient astronomers, it was a mystery, a giant orb wandering the heaven. But when Voyager approached in 1979, the mythic giant became something else entirely, a world of staggering dynamism, more alive and violent than imagination had dared. The great red spot, long observed from Earth as a pale smudge through telescopes, was revealed in stunning detail. Voyager's cameras showed a storm large enough to swallow Earth whole, its winds raging for centuries, perhaps millennia. What had been an abstract blot became a living tempest, a churning monument to the raw power of planetary weather. The planet itself, banded with ochres and creams, appeared not static but restless, its atmosphere a canvas of turbulence and chaos. Jupiter was no serene god. It was storm incarnate. And then came the moon. Io, once thought a barren rock, astonished the world. Voyager's images revealed plumes of volcanic fire erupting into space, sulphurous fountains taller than Everest, staining the surface with yellows, reds, and blacks. No one had expected such vitality. A moon was alive, reshaping itself in real time, its interior stoked by Jupiter's relentless tidal pull. Europa, in contrast, gleamed with cracked ice, its surface fractured like the skin of a frozen sea, whispering of oceans hidden beneath. Ganymede and Callisto displayed their own scars and secrets, ancient surfaces etched with the memory of cosmic bombardment. The contrast between myth and revelation was profound. Jupiter, the divine patriarch, had been imagined as a symbol of power and authority. Voyager revealed a truth both stranger and grander, a system of storms, volcanoes, and oceans in waiting, a miniature solar system of complexity. The god had been dethroned, but in losing myth, he gained majesty. The reality was not less inspiring than legend, it was more for humanity. These encounters were transformative. They reminded us that the universe is not static, not silent, but alive with forces beyond comprehension. A storm larger than worlds, a moon vomiting fire, another perhaps hiding oceans that could cradle life. These were not the inventions of poets, but the revelations of a camera, a machine flung across billions of kilometers. In that moment, science itself became mythic. Voyager, the new bard, carrying stories not of gods imagined, but of worlds revealed. Jupiter was no longer only a bright point in the night sky, nor merely the name of a god. It was a realm of storms and fire, of seas beneath ice, of mysteries unfolding. Voyager's flyby transformed a planet into a pantheon of worlds, each one alive with possibility. The giant of myth had become a storming, seething cosmos unto itself, and humanity had finally drawn near enough to see the truth. Saturn's rings and shadows. For centuries, Saturn was the jewel of the night sky, a distant icon of beauty glimpsed only faintly through telescopes. Galileo, the first to peer at it with crude lenses, thought the rings were ears, strange protrusions he could not explain. Later, astronomers revealed them as concentric bands, but even then, Saturn remained an emblem of mystery, elegant, remote, a planet more symbol than substance. Voyager's arrival in 1980 and 1981 shattered that distance. For the first time, Saturn ceased to be a remote ornament and became an intricate marvel, its rings and moons revealed in staggering, intimate detail. From afar, the rings appeared as smooth, luminous bands, cosmic jewelry encircling the planet. Voyager showed the illusion for what it was, not solid structures, but vast, delicate tapestries made of billions of icy particles, ranging in size from grains of dust to mountains. It revealed gaps within the rings, the Cassini division, the Encke gap, etched not by emptiness alone, but by the gravitational rhythms of Saturn's many moons. The rings were not static, they were alive with resonance, a celestial symphony conducted by invisible forces. What had once seemed serene was revealed as turbulent. Voyager captured Spoke's transient shadows streaking across the rings, dark features that appeared and vanished, hinting at mysterious interactions with Saturn's magnetic field. Waves rippled through the bands, sculpted by shepherd moons whose gravity herded the particles into narrow corridors. This was not a simple halo of ice, but a dynamic system, fragile yet enduring, chaotic yet ordered. Saturn itself, once thought a placid sphere, proved no less complex. Voyager's images revealed a world banded with winds, storms churning beneath layers of haze. Its atmosphere, colder and subtler than Jupiter's, nonetheless betrayed the same restless vitality, and orbiting it were moons of astonishing diversity. Titan, cloaked in an orange smog that hid its surface entirely, whispering of chemistry that might mirror the primordial Earth. Enceladus, icy and reflective, with hints of hidden activity. Mimas and Tethys, cratered relics that bore the scars of cosmic violence. Saturn was not a single world, but a kingdom, its rings the crown, its moons the courtiers, its mysteries profound. The contrast could not have been sharper. From Earth, Saturn had been an icon of distant beauty, elegant and static. Voyager revealed that beauty in its details, where intricacy replaced simplicity and dynamic reality outshone myth. The rings were no longer perfect bands of light. They were restless rivers of ice, sculpted by unseen hands. The planet was no longer remote. It was a realm of storms, moons, and mysteries, bound together in delicate balance. Philosophically, this transformation reflects the nature of exploration itself. Distance inspires wonder, but detail deepens it. To see Saturn as a luminous orb in the night sky is to glimpse beauty at a remove. To see its rings resolved into living systems is to experience wonder sharpened by truth. Voyager reminded us that knowledge does not diminish mystery, it magnifies it, replacing the simplicity of ignorance with the richness of reality. In Saturn, humanity found a metaphor for its own condition. From afar, we seem simple. Up close, we are intricate, restless, full of hidden depths. The rings, fragile and shifting, mirrored our own tenuous existence order, sustained only by the dance of forces. In revealing Saturn, Voyager also revealed us, beings who, though fragile as ice particles, weave together into patterns of beauty, fleeting but real. Saturn, once a distant icon, became through Voyager a living wonder. Its rings are no longer only symbols in the sky, but stories of gravity, time, and fragility etched in ice and shadow. And though the spacecraft sped past, leaving the giant behind, the vision it granted remains. Beauty is never diminished by closeness, only made more profound. The gateway beyond. By the time Voyager reached Uranus in 1986, the sun was already a pale lantern, its warmth diminished, its brilliance reduced to a distant gleam. Here, at the edge of the familiar planets, the encounters took on a different tone. Jupiter and Saturn had been vibrant kingdoms, radiant with storms and rings. Uranus was quieter, stranger, a world turned sideways, rolling rather than spinning, its axis tilted almost 90 degrees. Voyager's cameras revealed a planet cloaked in a bland cyan haze, a world that seemed asleep. Yet beneath its calm exterior lay a deep strangeness, seasons that lasted decades, magnetic fields tilted and offset, a geometry that defied expectation. The planet's quiet face belied the alien mechanics that ruled its skies. Neptune, reached 3 years later, offered a final crescendo. Voyager's flyby in 1989 unveiled a world of deep sapphire blue, winds roaring faster than any measured in the solar system. Its great dark spot mirrored Jupiter's red, a storm of cosmic ferocity swirling in the frozen atmosphere. Geysers of nitrogen spurted from the icy surface of Triton, Neptune's largest moon, revealing unexpected vitality at the edge of cold. Where Uranus had been enigmatic, Neptune was defiant, a world that raged against its distance from the Sun with astonishing dynamism. Yet, as spectacular as these encounters were, they carried a poignant undertone. With Neptune behind them, the Voyagers had no more planetary appointment. The grand tour was complete. The outer giants, once imagined only as blurry orbs in telescopes, had been revealed in their complexity. Now the spacecraft faced only the long dark, the slow departure from the solar system into interstellar space. Voyager's mission shifted in that moment from exploration to endurance, from capturing worlds to carrying memory. The contrast was vivid, fading sunlight behind, cosmic solitude ahead. Each planet had been a stop along a journey defined by discovery, each flyby a revelation that turned myth into reality. But beyond Neptune stretched no more giants, no more familiar waypoints, only the scattered debris of the Kuiper Belt, the long silence of the heliosphere, and then the gulf between stars. For humanity, this was a threshold. We had touched the last of the planets. Beyond lay the beginning of the infinite. Philosophically, Uranus and Neptune became symbols of passage. They were the gates marking the end of childhood exploration, the final guardians before the plunge into interstellar night. To glimpse them was to acknowledge both achievement and loss. Achievement in unveiling the last great planets of the solar system, loss in recognizing that the era of planetary discovery was closing. Voyager's cameras would no longer send back images of new worlds. Instead, its instruments would listen to the whispers of plasma and magnetic fields, charting the boundary between solar wind and starlight. And yet, there was no despair in this transition. Instead, there was quiet dignity. Voyager had revealed every planet from Jupiter to Neptune in a single generation, a feat unrepeatable for centuries. In leaving those giants behind, it entered a new role, not just explorer of worlds, but herald of interstellar space. The fading sun marked not an ending, but a beginning, the start of humanity's first journey into true solitude, where no planets guide the way. Thus, Uranus and Neptune were more than distant stops. They were thresholds. Beyond their icy orbits stretched the abyss, vast and silent. And into that abyss Voyager carried us, fragile, curious, daring our first step, not only among planets, but into the endless beyond. The dimming of the sun. As Voyager pressed beyond the orbit of Neptune, the sun, the constant of all human history, began to change. No longer the blazing star that floods Earth with warmth, it became something smaller, more fragile, less commanding. By the time Voyager reached the threshold of interstellar space, sunlight was not a nurturing presence, but a pale echo, a lantern flickering in an ever-deepening night. The spacecraft's solar panels were long since useless, only radioisotope. Decay kept its instruments alive. The age of planetary exploration had ended, and with it ended the sun's dominance. For earthbound humanity, the sun is life itself, giver of warmth, keeper of rhythm, the heart of all stories of light. But for Voyager, outward bound, the sun became background. Its energy, once overwhelming, dwindled into irrelevance. Beyond the heliosphere, where the solar wind gives way to the winds of other stars, Voyager entered a realm where our star is just one among many. The contrast is stark. What sustains us at home is almost nothing in the void. This transition is not merely physical, but philosophical. The warmth of sunlight is intimacy, the reminder that we belong to a star. The cold between stars is estrangement, the recognition that space is not made for us. Voyager embodies that passage from belonging to exile, from the cradle of the sun to the wilderness of the galaxy. Each meter it travels is a testimony to the limits of warmth and the immensity of cold. Yet there is wonder in that exile. In leaving behind the dominance of sunlight, Voyager becomes a true interstellar traveler. Its instruments now measure the plasma and particles that drift between stars, its faint signals reaching Earth across light hours of silence. It carries within it a paradox, a machine built in the warmth of Earth, surviving in the cold of interstellar night, still whispering. Back to the star that birthed it. The dimming of the sun is thus both elegy and triumph. Elegy because it reminds us that warmth and familiarity are fragile, confined to a narrow band of distance and time. Triumph because Voyager endures where warmth cannot reach, carrying human presence into realms where only cold rules. The spacecraft, once illuminated by the sun, now travels by the light of distant galaxies, its course set toward eternity. In this contrast lies the meaning of Voyager's journey. It began in light, but its destiny is shadow. It left the warmth of home to enter the infinite cold. And in doing so, it revealed not only the fragility of our star's embrace, but the courage of our reach. The sun dims, but our curiosity does not. In Voyager's exile, humanity's light continues to burn, a voice across infinity. Even now, decades after its launch, Voyager continues to speak. Its voice is not the commanding roar of rockets or the brilliance of planetary photographs, but something far fainter, a whisper of radio waves stretched thin across billions of kilometers, reaching Earth with the power of a snowflake falling on the palm. Each transmission is fragile, its photons weakened by distance, yet still intelligible, still carrying data across the void. In that fragility lies both the vulnerability of our technology and the resilience of our determination. To capture these whispers requires immense effort. Vast dishes of the deep space network turn their faces to the sky, listening with extraordinary sensitivity. The signal, weaker than the hum of background noise, is coaxed into clarity by patience, mathematics, and faith. Engineers once joked that it was like detecting the warmth of a matchstick on the moon. And yet, through this tenuous link, Voyager continues to deliver knowledge measurements of plasma density, magnetic fields, and the frontier where the sun's influence fades into the galaxy. The contrast is striking. The spacecraft itself is a monument of human engineering, hurled into space with the power of Saturn V rockets and the precision of gravitational slingshot. Yet what reaches us now is almost nothing, an attenuated trickle, a whisper that could vanish with a single failure of circuitry or antenna. Fragile as a heartbeat, it persists. The message, though faint, resists silence. Philosophically, this persistence resonates deeply. The universe is vast, cold and indifferent, yet here is a thread of communication that spans it. Humanity, bound to one small planet, maintains a dialogue with a machine beyond the reach of sunlight. The content of the signal binary code, packets, of telemetry may seem mundane, but the act of its arrival is profound. It is proof that distance, however great, can be bridged by intention. It is proof that we can still hear what we once sent outward. And the message is not merely scientific. Each whisper is also symbolic, a reminder that Voyager is still alive, still carrying our hope. Its transmissions tell us not only about the state of interstellar space, but about the endurance of curiosity. The spacecraft has outlasted presidents, regimes, generations. It has outlived the Cold War that birthed it, the political rivalries that justified it, and still, across infinity, it speaks in the steady rhythm of data streams, like a pulse of human perseverance echoing in the void. The fragility of the signal sharpens our awareness of its significance. One day it will fall silent, power will drain, instruments will fail, and no whisper will reach Earth again. That inevitability makes each transmission precious, a moment of connection before the darkness resumes. But resilience lies in the fact that Voyager has already succeeded beyond measure. Every day it still speaks is a triumph not of technology alone, but of vision. In the end, Voyager's voice is our voice. We built it, launched it, entrusted it with memory. Its whispers remind us that even the faintest signal can matter, that fragility does not preclude endurance. Against the silence of the cosmos, Voyager's faint transmissions are not weakness, but defiance, our refusal to let distance have the last word. As long as the whispers continue, Earth remains connected to the stars. Loneliness and legacy. Voyager drifts alone. No planets await, no further encounters lie ahead, only the immeasurable dark between stars. Its journey is not towards something but away from Earth, from the sun, from every world it once revealed. In that solitude, the spacecraft becomes more than an explorer. It becomes a metaphor for our own condition, beings cast into a universe, vast beyond comprehension, longing for connection, enduring despite the silence. The loneliness of Voyager is profound. It carries no crew, yet it bears our presence. Its antennas point home, forever calling across billions of kilometers, though no answer can truly reach back. One day, its signal will fade, and the spacecraft will continue on mute, still moving, still carrying the golden record, but without a voice. It will be alone, in the truest sense, a human creation persisting in a cosmos that does not notice. Yet. In that loneliness lies legacy. Voyager's endurance is not measured only in distance or data, but in symbolism. It testifies to humanity's refusal to remain earthbound, to our willingness to venture into spaces where no comfort awaits. Against the indifference of the void, we sense something fragile, and it endures. Its persistence tells us that our species is not defined only by fear or survival, but by curiosity that dares to outlast its makers. Voyager's metaphor deepens when we consider our own existence. Like the spacecraft, we are temporary beings cast into an immense universe. Our lives, like its signal, are finite, fragile, easily swallowed by silence. Yet what matters is not permanence, but the act of reaching, of leaving behind traces that testify to our presence. Voyager is such a trace, a fragment of Earth sailing beyond memory, carrying our songs, our greetings, our questions. Its journey is our own, extended into eternity. Philosophically, this duality, loneliness and legacy, is what makes Voyager timeless. It is a reminder that even isolation can bear meaning, that endurance itself is a form of triumph. Long after Earth has changed beyond recognition, long after the civilizations that launched it have passed, Voyager will still drift, a silent witness to what we once dared. Its solitude will not diminish its significance, it will magnify it. Thus, Voyager is more than a machine. It is a mirror of longing, a vessel of endurance, a symbol of the human spirit's refusal to vanish quietly. In its loneliness, it carries our legacy. And in its legacy, it transforms loneliness into connection, the connection between what we are, what we dream, and what we leave behind in the infinite dark. Sounds of Earth. When the golden record was conceived, it was not enough to send images alone. Sight, after all, is only one way of knowing the world. To capture Earth in its fullness required sound, the voices of its people, the music of its cultures, the murmur of its landscapes. And so, inscribed upon the record, alongside diagrams and photographs, went 90 minutes of music, greetings in dozens of languages, and the living chorus of natural sounds that define our fragile world. What Voyager carried was not silence, but the pulse of a planet. Some of the selections were extraordinary in their simplicity. A mother's heartbeat, the cry of a baby, the sound of rain, the whisper of waves against a shore. These are sounds so ordinary that most of us barely notice them in our daily lives, and yet, encoded on a disc meant to cross the stars, they became profound. The splash of water or the chirping of a bird, trivial on Earth, took on a different weight when imagined as the first thing an alien ear might ever hear of us. Then there was music, spanning epochs and cultures, Bach's fugues, Beethoven's late quartets, Stravinsky's fiery rhythms, alongside Navajo chants, Peruvian panpipes, Senegalese drumming, and Chuck Berry's Johnny B. Good. The collection was not exhaustive, how could it be? But it was expansive, reaching across geography and time to suggest the breadth of human creativity. To hear the record is to hear the world not as a single voice but as a polyphony, a reminder that civilization is not one culture but many, woven together in sound. The greetings added yet another layer. Voices from 55 languages, some ancient, some modern, each offering words of peace and wealth. "Hello from the children of planet Earth," a young voice declared, carrying innocence into the cosmos. These fragments, simple and sincere, transformed Voyager into more than a machine. It became an emissary, not just of science, but of humanity's desire to be known, to reach across infinite distances with a message that says, "You are not alone because we are here." The contrast is striking. A baby's cry, a kiss, a laugh, mundane sounds that pass unnoticed. Every moment on Earth are, on the cosmic stage, transformed into monuments. A thunderstorm or a footstep becomes as significant as symphonies when they are framed as Earth's ambassadors. Voyager, a spacecraft of circuits and metal, became the stage for the ordinary turned extraordinary. What was once background became foreground. What was once ephemeral became eternal. Philosophically, the sounds of Earth remind us that meaning does not arise from grandeur alone. It arises from context. On Earth, rain is common. In space, rain is revelation. On Earth, greetings are routine. In interstellar exile, they are profound acts of hope. The Golden Record thus teaches us something essential, that our greatest treasures are not the rare or monumental, but the everyday rhythms that make life whole. In sending those sounds, humanity offered not only knowledge, but intimacy. The record does not simply say what Earth is, it says what Earth feels like. It is a bridge built of sound, fragile and improbable, spanning the abyss. And in that bridge lies the most extraordinary truth of all, that even the smallest whisper, if carried far enough, can speak for a world. A message without a listener. The Golden Record is often described as a message, but a message presupposes a listener. In this lies its paradox. It is communication flung into a void where no recipient may ever exist. The odds that an alien intelligence will one day intercept Voyager are vanishingly small. The probes are tiny compared to the immensity of interstellar space, their trajectories unplanned for contact. The stars they pass are few, their courses indifferent to habitable world. To call the record a message is to invoke faith, not probability. And yet that very improbability is what lends it power. Most communication is utilitarian, letters meant to be read, broadcasts designed to be heard. The Golden Record is different. It was not created for certainty, but for possibility. It is the purest form of outreach, an offering made without expectation of reply. In that sense, it is less a conversation than a gesture, the cosmic equivalent of placing a candle in a window for travelers who may never come. The contrast between intention and silence defines the record's essence. On one side is deliberate curation, greetings in dozens of languages, music carefully chosen to represent human creativity, sounds and images meant to convey the richness of Earth. Every groove was etched with intention, the product of a species that longed to say, "We are here, and this is our story." On the other side is the cosmos itself, vast and mute, its stars burning without care for our offering. The record sails into that silence, its grooves full of meaning, its path full of indifference. Some critics argued this made the effort pointless. Why send a message when no one is likely to hear it? But this criticism misunderstands the heart of the project. The Golden Record is not only about who might find it, it is about who created it. In the process of deciding what to include, humanity was forced to ask what it most valued, what fragments of sound and image defined its identity. In making a message for others, we created a mirror for ourselves. At the same time, the silence of the cosmos is not entirely disheartening. It may remind us that the universe is vast, but it also assures us that we are capable of acts that transcend utility. To send a message without a listener is to assert that meaning is not dependent on reception. The record matters not because it will be heard, but because it exists, because we dared to make it, because it testifies to our refusal to let the universe remain entirely mute. Philosophically, the golden record blurs the line between science and art. Science built Voyager, calculated its trajectory, ensured its instruments could survive. Art gave it a voice, a message layered with music and laughter, with greetings and waves, with images and hopes. It is both a scientific artifact and a cultural poem, a reminder that even when the universe does not answer, we still speak. Thus, the record becomes something richer than a failed communication. It is a monument to intentionality in the face of silence. It is humanity's declaration that even in the absence of certainty, expression is worthwhile. A message without a listener is not wasted, it is eternal. In the grooves of a golden disc, our species carved the proof that we long not only to survive, but to be known, even if only by the stars themselves. Voyager as mythic archive. What if the golden record was never truly meant for aliens? What if, instead, it is a time capsule, not for other civilizations, but for eternity itself, for gods, myths, or forces beyond comprehension? To imagine Voyager this way is to see it less as a piece of engineering and more as an archive of myth cast into the heavens like an offering. In this framing, the record is not a practical tool of communication but a ritual act, humanity's attempt to place its story among the stars as though inscribing it into the memory of the cosmos itself. Every culture has created archives for its gods. Ancient Mesopotamians inscribed prayers on clay tablets and buried them in temples, not expecting mortals to read them, but hoping divinity would take notice. Egyptians filled tombs with goods and texts for the afterlife. Medieval monks illuminated manuscripts not only for earthly readers, but for the glory of God. Each of these acts carried a sense that meaning transcended immediate reception, that even if no one on Earth could read the words, they mattered because they were offered. Voyager fits into this lineage. It is our modern tablet, our cosmic manuscript sent not to neighbors but to the divine vastness itself. The idea is not that literal gods will listen, but that the universe has always played the role of silent witness in human imagination. The sky is where we project longing, the stars where we imagine judgment, the cosmos where we place our hopes for permanence. By sending Voyager, we extended this ritual outward. The golden record becomes less about aliens decoding its grooves and more about declaring to the cosmos that we existed, that we sang, that we dreamed. It is a gesture of mythic proportion, a human psalm sung into interstellar silence. This perspective helps reconcile its improbability. If we think of the record as communication, the odds of success seem absurdly small. But if we think of it as ritual and archive for gods, not neighbors, then success is irrelevant. The act itself is the meaning. Voyager becomes a myth in motion, a physical artifact of our longing for recognition, sailing through space as though space itself were a divine audience. Even its form carries mythic resonance. A golden disc, circular and eternal, mirrors the sacred geometry of countless cultures. Its grooves spiral like mandalas, encoding not only sound, but the symbolism of cycles and eternity. To imagine it drifting forever is to see it as an arc, not of survival, but of memory. Just as myths preserve the essence of cultures long vanished, the golden record may preserve the essence of humanity long after Earth is gone. Philosophically, this reframing offers liberation. We do not need aliens to exist for Voyager to matter. We do not need an answer for the question to be profound. The record's purpose is fulfilled the moment it left Earth, because in that instant, we inscribed ourselves into myth. Voyager is a story we tell the cosmos, but also a story we tell ourselves, that we are creatures who refuse to vanish quietly, who carve memory into gold and fling it toward the infinite. Seen this way, Voyager is humanity's mythic archive a message not to listeners but to existence itself. Whether gods read it, whether stars remember it, whether silence absorbs it, it remains what it always was, an offering. And in offering, we transcend. The archive ensures that however small and fleeting we may be, our voices are carried into eternity, becoming part of the great story written in the night sky. The heliosphere boundary, borders on Earth are lines drawn by history and conflict. They can be seen on maps marked by fences or walls defended with armies, but in space borders are not political, they are physical, invisible and immense. One of the most profound of these is the heliosphere boundary, the threshold where the solar wind of our star finally yields to the pressures of the wider galaxy. Voyager, pressing ever outward, became the first human creation to approach and then cross this frontier, turning an abstract concept into lived exploration. The heliosphere is a vast bubble inflated by the sun's breath. Charged particles stream outward in every direction, forming a protective cocoon that shields the planets from much of the galaxy's radiation. For billions of kilometers, this solar wind dominates, but eventually its strength fades. At the edge lies the heliopause, where the outward push of the sun meets the inward pressure of the interstellar medium, a meeting place of forces, a border, defined not by nations, but by physics itself. Voyager's crossing of this boundary was subtle. No signposts announced it. No dramatic shift occurred in an instant. Instead, its instruments registered changes. Plasma densities rose. Magnetic fields altered. Cosmic rays grew stronger. Scientists pieced together the evidence and realized that the spacecraft had passed beyond the sun's direct influence. It had entered interstellar space, not in the poetic sense of distant stars, but in the literal sense of the galaxy's raw environment. The contrast with earthly borders is striking. On Earth, boundaries divide people, restricting movement or defining belonging. In space, the heliosphere boundary unites. Every planet, every moon, every comet, all exist within its bubble. To leave it is not to cross into another nation, but into another realm entirely. Voyager's passage was humanity's first step beyond the protective cradle of its star into a medium that no living creature had ever experienced. Philosophically, the crossing marks a profound moment. For the first time, something built by human hands has left the sun's domain. It is as if a child, long sheltered by its parent, has stepped into the world alone. Voyager's survival beyond the heliopause affirms that our reach is not confined to the solar bubble, that our presence, however fragile, can endure in the galaxy itself. The heliosphere boundary is not a wall, but a transition, a liminal zone where one influence fades and another begins. In this, it is perhaps the most fitting metaphor for Voyager itself. The spacecraft is no longer only an explorer of planets. It is a witness to thresholds, a traveler across invisible lines that redefine our place in the cosmos. Voyager among the stars. When Voyager crossed the heliopause in 2012, it became the first human-made object to enter true interstellar space. It did not blaze across that threshold with fanfare. It drifted almost humbly as its instruments registered subtle changes in plasma density and cosmic rays. Yet in that quiet passage, humanity itself stepped into a new domain. For billions of years, no artifact of Earth had left the sun's protective cocoon. Now, a machine the size of a small car floated among the stars, a pioneer in a realm that had previously belonged only to imagination. From a cosmic perspective, the achievement might appear insignificant. Voyager is infinitesimal against the backdrop of the Milky Way, a speck smaller than dust. Its speed, though extraordinary by human standards, is glacial compared to the distances it must cross. To reach even the nearest star would take tens of thousands of years. In the galactic scale, Voyager is no more consequential than a leaf drifting into an ocean. The stars do not notice. The galaxy does not bend its course, and yet symbolically it is monumental. For the first time, Earth has touched the galaxy directly. Voyager carries the fingerprints of our species beyond the sun's domain, ensuring that humanity is no longer confined entirely to its home star. It is not only a spacecraft, it is a declaration that beings bound to one fragile planet dared to build something that could endure beyond their cradle. In its endurance, Voyager transforms insignificance into meaning. The paradox defines its legacy. Physically, it is powerless, a silent traveler far from home, fading into cold. But metaphorically, it is immense, the first emissary of Earth into the larger cosmos. This duality mirrors our own condition. As individuals, we are small, fleeting, easily forgotten. As a species, we are capable of gestures that reach into eternity, that assert presence even in the face of overwhelming vastness. Voyager is both frail and infinite, both exile and monument. The spacecraft's journey also reframes our place in the galaxy. For millennia, humanity's stories were earthbound, then solar. Now they are galactic. Voyager represents not only what we know, but what we dream, that our destiny lies not only under our own sun, but among the stars. Its golden record does not presume discovery, it proclaims participation. It says, we too belong to this larger story, however briefly, however faintly. There is humility in this achievement. Voyager does not conquer, colonize, or transform the stars. It drifts, it listens, it endures. Its presence is not domination, but witness. And in that witness lies a lesson. To exist among the stars does not require grandeur. It requires only persistence, the courage to send something outward, and trust that the act itself has value. Thus, Voyager among the stars is both a fact and a myth. The fact is a machine crossing a plasma boundary. The myth is humanity's first step into the galaxy, a story of endurance written against infinity. Both are true, and together they reveal why this moment matters. Voyager reminds us that while we may be small, our gestures can be vast. Our creations, like our questions, are not confined to Earth. They travel outward, into the dark, where even insignificance can become monumental. When maps end, stories begin with Voyager. Humanity reached the edges of its maps. Every world visited. Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune was once a blank spot on our charts, a mystery transformed into knowledge by its passing. Cameras turned myth into measurement, imagination into image. But once the planets were behind it, Voyager entered a realm with no more destinations, no more cartography to complete. Beyond the heliopause there are no maps, only the vastness of interstellar night. And when maps end, stories begin. Voyager's continued journey is less about discovery in the scientific sense and more about meaning. It drifts where no human has been, not to chart new planets, but to embody endurance itself. Its instruments, still recording plasma and radiation, are useful, yes, but their greatest gift is symbolic. Voyager is no longer simply a spacecraft. It is a story in motion, a parable of human longing carried into eternity. It tells us not where the worlds are, but who we are, a species that dares to leave even without a destination. In this way, Voyager begins to occupy the realm of myth. Just as ancient mariners spoke of Odysseus wandering seas or Gilgamesh seeking immortality, so future generations may speak of Voyager, the wanderer that left home forever, bearing a golden memory of its makers. It becomes less a machine and more a hero, frail, exiled but enduring, carrying our songs into the silence of the stars. Myths are born when fact transcends itself, and Voyager has crossed that threshold. The contrast between map and story is telling. Maps offer certainty, boundaries, coordinates. Stories offer possibility, meanings, and wonder. When Voyager's maps ended, its story began not because its cameras shut down, but but because its journey passed beyond the reach of expectation. It is now a tale of exile, of persistence, of the human impulse to be more than earthbound. In its silence, it speaks more profoundly than it ever did in data alone. Thus, Voyager marks a turning point. It is science transformed into myth, engineering transfigured into poetry. It does not conquer space, it sanctifies it with narrative. And in doing so, it reminds us that exploration has never been only about knowledge. It has always been about story. The story of beings who, though small and brief, reach for what lies beyond their grasp. Voyager's journey will outlast us, perhaps by billions of years. Long after Earth has changed, its path will continue. By then, it will no longer be remembered as a probe with instruments, but as a mythic Voyager, the first exile into the interstellar sea. And perhaps that is its truest purpose, to remind us that when maps end, stories are what endure. Half-life of memory. Voyager's endurance has always been miraculous, but miracles carry their own half-life. From the beginning, the spacecraft were powered not by solar panels, which would be useless in the dim reaches of the outer planets, but by radioisotope thermoelectric generators. Tiny pellets of plutonium-238 produced heat, which was converted into electricity. This design gave Voyager decades of life, enough to tour the outer giants and then some. Yet plutonium decays, its heat dwindling with each passing year. And so, too does the spacecraft's power. The half-life of plutonium becomes the half-life of memory, the slow silencing of a voice that has spoken for nearly half a century. Already, the effects are visible. Instruments have been shut down one by one to conserve power. Cameras went dark long ago. Spectrometers and detectors have followed, each farewell a reminder that endurance is not eternity. What remains is pared down, the bare essentials needed. To whisper across billions of kilometers, even those whispers grow weaker as the electricity available dwindles. One day, not far in the cosmic sense, the spacecraft will no longer have the strength to speak at all. The contrast is poignant. Voyager is the embodiment of endurance, surviving longer, traveling farther, carrying memory deeper into space than anyone could have predicted. Yet endurance is not the same as immortality. The spacecraft's silence is inevitable. It will not be a dramatic end, but a gradual dimming, a signal too faint to decode, then too faint to detect, until all that remains is the silent motion of a machine carried forward by inertia. Philosophically, this fading is as important as the endurance itself. For memory too has a half-life. Civilizations rise and fall, their stories preserved, then eroded, then forgotten. Voyager mirrors this arc. It carries our greetings, our music, our maps, but how long will those be remembered on Earth? How long will the golden record's meaning remain alive in human minds, even as the spacecraft itself drifts mute? Perhaps like ancient ruins, its legacy will endure in fragments, in myth, in echoes passed on even after the details are lost. There is beauty in this impermanence. Voyager's fading voice does not diminish its achievement, it heightens it. That something so fragile, launched in an era of typewriters and rotary phones, could still speak across the stars for decades is extraordinary. Its silence, when it comes, will not erase its journey. Rather, it will sanctify it, turning endurance into memory, memory into legacy. The half-life of memory is not only about loss, it is also about transformation. Voyager's silence will not end the story, it will begin a new one. Without a signal, it will become purely mythic, the silent wanderer, the eternal exile. Its endurance will be remembered less in data than in meaning, less in numbers than in narrative. And in that transformation, it will achieve a kind of immortality, not of function, but of symbol. This the decay of Voyager's power is not only an ending, but a lesson. Endurance matters not because it lasts forever, but because it lasts long, enough to change us. Voyager has changed us. Its voice will fade, but its story will remain, carried in our own memory, which has its own half-life yet renews itself with every generation that dares to wonder. In the end, endurance and fading are not opposites, but partners, shaping how we remember and why we dream. The rustless future. When Voyager's last whisper fades, its journey will not end. Silenced, powerless, it will continue to drift, borne forward by momentum into the vast interstellar sea. Unlike earthly relics, it will not decay quickly. There is no oxygen in the deep space between stars, no water to corrode its metals, no weather to grind it down. Voyager will not rust. It will endure intact for billions of years, longer than the pyramids, longer than Earth's mountains, longer even than the sun itself. It will be one of the most enduring artifacts humanity has ever created, not by design alone, but by circumstance of exile. The contrast with humanity is staggering. Civilizations rise and fall in centuries, languages vanish in decades. Even our species itself may not survive more than a few million years, a blink compared to cosmic time. Yet Voyager, a small machine no larger than a delivery van, may outlast us all. It is possible that long after humans have disappeared, Voyager will still carry our songs and greetings, still hold the grooves of the golden record, still fly silently through the galaxy as Earth's emissary. This endurance is humbling. We often imagine permanence in monuments, stone temples, steel towers, digital archives, but these too are fragile before geology, climate, and time. Voyager, in contrast, is unmoored from Earth's cycles. It has escaped erosion, tectonics, rising seas, and shifting skies. Its environment is the void itself, where entropy works slowly, almost tenderly. It will wander intact while continents drift, while stars are born and die, while galaxies reshape themselves in gravitational tides. Philosophically, this raises unsettling questions. What does it mean if our most enduring creation is not a city or a cathedral, but a machine drifting silently, unseen? Voyager may outlast everything we think of as civilization. The art, the literature, the languages, even the memory of nations may be gone, yet this spacecraft will still exist, carrying fragments of who we were. In a sense, it becomes our monument not on Earth, but in exile, where endurance is possible. And yet endurance without witness is strange. Voyager may persist long after memory of it has faded on Earth. Perhaps no intelligence will ever find it. Perhaps it will never be read. It will simply endure, rustless and mute, a capsule of meaning no one hears. But even that is significant, because endurance is not only about being observed. It is about defying the fragility of existence, leaving behind something that persists regardless of whether it is seen. Voyager will be such a thing, a human story etched into eternity, whether or not eternity listens. In this sense, Voyager's rustless future is not tragic, but beautiful. It symbolizes the paradox of humanity, ephemeral yet enduring, fragile yet defiant. We, the brief species, built something that will last longer than ourselves. We, the transient, created permanence not on Earth, but in the stars. Voyager's silent survival is both elegy and triumph, reminding us that legacy does not always reside in what is remembered. Sometimes it resides simply in what continues to be. Thus, the spacecraft's fate mirrors our own. We cannot escape impermanence, but we can leave behind traces. We cannot endure forever, but we can create things that do. Voyager, rustless and wandering, is that trace, our gift to the galaxy, our mark upon eternity. It drifts not only as a machine, but as a symbol of what it means to endure beyond ourselves, to carve permanence out of transience, to let something of us live where we cannot. The archaeology of tomorrow. Imagine a future when Voyager is no longer silent only to us, but silent because we are gone. Thousands or millions of years from now, long after Earth has changed, Voyager may still drift intact, a relic awaiting discovery. Perhaps it will pass near a star system where a new civilization has risen. Perhaps it will wander into the gaze of alien astronomers who notice its unnatural shape against the background of stars. What would they see? A fragment of technology scarred by micrometeoroids, its antenna still outstretched like a gesture of longing, its golden disk still gleaming faintly in starlight. To them, Voyager might resemble an artifact from a forgotten people, a shard of cosmic archaeology. Just as we study pottery shards or stone tools to piece together the lives of ancient humans, so might they study Voyager, inferring the existence of builders long vanished. The grooves of the golden record, the diagrams etched on its cover, the improbable precision of its construction, all would testify that somewhere, sometime, a species dared to create and to send a messenger into the void. The contrast is poignant. On Earth, archaeology uncovers fragments of our own past, reminding us of continuity, of inheritance. In space, archaeology would uncover not continuity but absence, evidence of beings who no longer exist, whose stories survive only in what they left behind. Voyager could become such an artifact, a memory capsule, discovered not by us but by others. In its silence it would still speak, saying not only we were here, but also we are gone. And yet there is hope in this speculation. If Voyager is found, it will not only confirm that humanity once existed, but that we cared enough to create beauty, to send music, greetings and laughter across impossible distances. Its discovery would be an encounter not with our power but with our humility, not with conquest but with curiosity. It would show that our species, however brief, sought connection, dared to imagine that meaning could transcend time and space. Perhaps then the true archaeology of tomorrow is not about stones and bones, but about this fragile machine still sailing the stars. Whether discovered by alien minds or by descendants of humanity returning from new worlds, Voyager will remind them and us of our origins, a moment in the late 20th century when beings on a small blue planet built a vessel and entrusted it with their memory. Thus, Voyager becomes more than spacecraft, more than science. It becomes a time capsule for futures we cannot imagine, a gift to archaeologists yet unborn, a relic that may outlast even the Earth itself. In its endurance lies a paradox. Though we may vanish, our stories may still be found, waiting patiently in the infinite dark. A machine that shows us who we are. Voyager was launched to study planets, but its greatest discovery was us. In its long journey outward, the spacecraft has become a mirror, reflecting not only the outer giants and distant boundaries, but also the character of its makers. Through its endurance and its silence, Voyager reveals the essence of humanity. Ambition, curiosity, fragility. It is not just a machine in space, it is a portrait of who we are. Ambition is inscribed in its very existence. At a time when nations were preoccupied with rivalries on Earth, humanity dared to build a machine destined for exile. Voyager was not satisfied with orbit or even planetary exploration. It was aimed at the stars. This boldness, the refusal to confine ourselves to what is near, is part of our nature. The spacecraft embodies that restless striving, that refusal to accept limits as final. In its trajectory, we see our desire to go farther than reason says we should. Yet curiosity is the deeper motive. Voyager did not leave Earth as a conqueror, but as a question. What lies beyond the known? What do Jupiter's storms look like up close? Do moons, once thought dead, conceal life's potential? Its instruments were tools of wonder, its golden record a gesture of hope. Through Voyager, curiosity became concrete, etched into circuits and launched across space. The mission proved that knowledge is not only power, it is hunger, the endless appetite to know what lies beyond the horizon. But fragility is equally present. The spacecraft is small, its signal faint, its power decaying, its survival depends on chance as much as design. And we, its makers, are fragile too, confined to one world, vulnerable to time, fleeting in the scale of stars. Voyager reminds us of this vulnerability even as it transcends it. Its silence, when it comes, will echo our own mortality. and yet silence itself becomes reflection. As Voyager drifts farther, speaking more faintly, we listen more intently. Its diminishing voice reminds us how rare connection is in the cosmos, how precious each whisper of data, each trace of endurance. The spacecraft does not need to speak loudly to reveal who we are. Its fading signal is enough to show us our longing not to be alone, our need to see ourselves in what we send outward. In this sense, Voyager is both machine and metaphor. It functions as technology, but it also speaks as symbol. It tells us that to be human is to be ambitious, to reach further than safety requires, to be curious, to seek even when answers may never come, and to be fragile, to know we are finite and yet dream of the infinite. In its journey, Voyager does not just show us the universe, it shows us ourselves. The pale blue dot legacy. In 1990, as Voyager 1 prepared to shut off its cameras to save power, it turned back one final time. From 6 billion kilometers away, the spacecraft captured a photograph that would become one of the most iconic images in history. Earth reduced to a tiny speck, less than a pixel in size, suspended in a shaft of scattered sunlight. It was Carl Sagan who gave this image its enduring meaning, naming it the pale blue dot. In that fragile mote, he saw not just a planet, but the entire human story, every life, every joy, every sorrow, contained in a single glimmer, almost lost against the vast black dot. The contrast is profound. On Earth, we experience ourselves as large. Nations span continents, wars reshape civilizations, mountains tower, oceans divide. Yet from Voyager's vantage point, all of this shrinks into something barely visible. Earth is not the center, not even a prominent feature. It is simply one dot among billions of stars, a whisper in the immensity of the cosmos. The photograph obliterates human pretension. It forces humility, reminding us that our home, for all its beauty, is also infinitesimally small. Sagan's meditation gave words to this humbling vision. He reminded us that every king and peasant, every lover and tyrant, every empire and religion, every hunter and farmer, every child and ancestor, all of human history unfolded on that pale dot. The image makes grandiosity absurd. It makes cruelty obscene. How can we fight over borders, over pride, when the stage upon which we fight is smaller than a pixel in a beam of scattered sunlight? Voyager's camera did not just reveal Earth, it revealed perspective. And yet, fragility is only half the lesson. The other half is responsibility. If Earth is so small, so vulnerable, then it is all the more precious. There is nowhere else, at least for now, where humanity can live. The photograph makes clear that the planet is not merely one world among many, it is our world, our cradle, our only refuge in an indifferent cosmos. Its fragility is not despairing, it is galvanizing. To see Earth so small is to understand how much it needs our care. Voyager thus became more than a planetary explorer. It became a philosopher. Its final photograph was not of Jupiter's storms or Saturn's rings, but of us, reframed against infinity. This was not data alone, it was legacy, a turning of the mirror back upon ourselves. The pale blue dot image transformed space exploration into self-reflection, linking the immensity of the universe with the vulnerability of home. It remains perhaps the single greatest example of how science can become poetry, even today. Decades later, the pale blue dot continues to shape how we think of Earth. It humbles us, yet also unites us. From Voyager's distance, there are no borders, no divisions, no nations, only one fragile world. The photograph challenges us to live accordingly, to recognize that our differences are trivial compared to the cosmic scale, and that our shared responsibility to the planet is immense. Thus, the pale blue dot is Voyager's greatest legacy, a lesson in humility, fragility, and wonder. In that tiny point of light, we see the truth of our existence, that we are small, yet capable of seeing our smallness, fragile, yet capable of love, insignificant in size but profound in meaning. Voyager, in its final glance, gave us not only an image of Earth, but a vision of ourselves. The Voyager. Within us, Voyager's journey is not only the story of a spacecraft, it is also a metaphor for us. Each human life is itself a voyage, launched from the cradle of birth into an unknown that stretches farther than imagination. Just as Voyager left Earth never to return, so too do we leave childhood, safety, and certainty, moving inexorably into unfamiliar realms. We are voyagers, each of us, cast into a cosmos we do not fully understand. The spacecraft's trajectory mirrors our own existential path. At first, it traveled through the familiar, the planets we had glimpsed from afar, the boundaries of the sun's domain. These stages are like the milestones of life: childhood, youth, maturity, each mapped, each known to those who came before. But eventually Voyager reached the frontier, the edge of maps, the crossing into interstellar night. This too is our destiny. Each life moves into regions where there is no precedent, where the questions deepen and the answers recede. Voyager survives on dwindling power, whispering faintly across an ever-widening gulf. So do we. Our strength, once abundant, fades with time. Our voices grow softer. Our presence becomes memory. Yet the value lies not in permanence, but in persistent. Voyager reminds us that to endure, even in silence, is itself meaningful. Our lives are finite, yet in their finitude lies their power to carry our own golden records of love, of laughter, of small and ordinary beauty into the unknown. Death, the ultimate unknown, is our personal heliopause. Just as Voyager crossed from the sun's influence into the galaxy's vastness, so we too will cross a boundary from the known into the unknowable. What lies beyond, no one can say. Perhaps nothing, perhaps something, but like Voyager, we move forward regardless, carried by momentum, by the inevitability of being. To live is to travel toward that horizon, not in despair, but in acceptance of the mystery. And yet, within this trajectory is wonder. Voyager is not diminished because it cannot return. It is exalted because it dares to go. The same is true of us. Our lives are precious, precisely because they are brief, because each moment is a step into unexplored space. We are fragile, yes, but like Voyager, we are also emissaries of memory, carriers of meaning, voyagers through existence itself. Thus, the spacecraft's story is inseparable from our own. It shows us that the voyage matters even without certainty of destination, even without the promise of return. Each of us in living is a voyager into love, into time, into death, into whatever lies beyond. And perhaps that is the truest legacy of Voyager, to remind us that the journey is itself the purpose, that within every human being sails a voyager, endlessly seeking, endlessly moving toward the infinite unknown. Cosmic archaeology. If humanity vanishes, Voyager will remain. This is the paradox of our age. We are mortal, fragile, and fleeting, yet the artifacts we cast into the void may endure far longer than our species itself. Voyager, drifting intact for billions of years, will carry fragments of who we were into futures we cannot imagine. To envision those futures is to step into the realm of cosmic archaeology, where our machine becomes a relic awaiting discovery by others. Imagine an alien, intelligence, or perhaps a distant descendant of humanity, stumbling upon Voyager in the deep galactic dark. To them, it would not appear as a functioning probe, but as a fossil of technology, an object scarred by dust, its power long gone, its circuits inert. And yet, like archaeologists on Earth who recover pottery shards or bones, they might see in Voyager the unmistakable evidence of intelligent origin. Its antenna, its symmetry, its crafted precision would reveal that it was made not born. It would testify that somewhere, sometime, a species reached out beyond its world. The contrast between human mortality and artifact immortality could not be sharper. Civilizations rise and fall in centuries. Languages vanish in decades. Individual lives pass in moments compared to cosmic time. Yet this spacecraft, small and humble, will persist long after cities crumble, after oceans shift, after the sun itself swells into a red giant and consumes Earth. When humanity is gone, Voyager will remain silent, intact, a monument to our existence. We who feared death created an emissary that defies it. But archaeology is more than objects. It is story. What story will Voyager tell? The golden record will still be there, etched with images and music, encoded with greetings, instructions, and diagrams. Even if no alien ever hears its sounds, the record itself is testimony that we longed not only to survive, but to be known. To encounter it would be to discover not just technology, but aspiration, the evidence of beings who dreamed of connection. But of course, there is irony here. The very immortality of the artifact highlights our impermanence. We cannot preserve ourselves, but we have preserved our trace. Voyager will outlast us, but it will not carry us with it. It will drift through silence, carrying memory into a future where memory itself may be meaningless. And yet perhaps that is enough. Archaeology is never about completeness, it is about fragments that reveal presence. Voyager is that fragment, a shard of Earth preserved against eternity. Philosophically, this idea reshapes our sense of legacy. We often think of immortality as something personal, something tied to our own survival or remembrance. Voyager shows another path. Immortality may lie not in ourselves but in what we make. Our machines, our stories, our gestures may endure where we cannot. Voyager is humanity's offering to the future, not because it will be received, but because it exists. It ensures that even if we are forgotten, we were once here, and we once dared. Thus, cosmic archaeology transforms Voyager into more than a spacecraft. It becomes an artifact waiting in the deep future, a fossil of intelligence, a myth in waiting. We are mortal. Voyager is not. We are brief. Voyager is enduring. And in that contrast lies both sorrow and triumph. Sorrow because our lives will vanish. Triumph because our legacy will not. Voyager drifts on, carrying the paradox of humanity, fragile and fleeting, yet capable of creating something that speaks across eternity. Voyagers of flesh and metal. Voyager is often called humanity's first emissary to the stars, but it is only a machine, an exile with no hope of return. What if one day the role of Voyager is taken up not just by spacecraft, but by us? To imagine the future is to picture humanity itself becoming Voyager-like, flesh and metal, fused into vessels of endurance, carrying our stories not as etched records, but as living memory sailing outward into the cosmic ocean. That the logic is almost inevitable. If a small probe can cross into interstellar space, then why not its makers? We are creatures of curiosity, restless by nature, unwilling to remain confined forever. As Earth ages, as the sun approaches its distant decline, survival may demand that we follow where Voyager has gone. What begins as metaphor becomes destiny. Humanity itself transformed into voyagers of flesh and metal, starfarers bound for distances once thought unreachable. Such starships will not resemble today's rockets. They may be vast habitats, miniature worlds carrying generations within. Or they may be smaller, crewed by augmented humans whose biology is blended with technology, able to endure deep time as Voyager endures. Perhaps consciousness itself will be transferred into machines, human in origin but metal in form, riding through interstellar dark as thinking probes. In every case, the model is Voyager, compact, resilient, a messenger without guarantee of reception, a traveler defined not by destination, but by endurance. The contrast is striking. Voyager drifts alone, silent, unknowing. Future human voyagers may carry laughter, language, and love into the stars, yet they will share its exile. The distances are immense. Journeys will last centuries, millennia. Just as Voyager left Earth never to return, so too may our starfarers accept permanent separation. To embark on such voyages is to become mythic. Exiles, bearers of humanity's continuity, carrying our story outward, even as Earth remains behind. But what would drive such voyages, necessity or longing? Perhaps both. Survival may push us outward when Earth becomes fragile, yet even without necessity, the impulse is already present. Voyager was not launched to save us. It was launched to know more, to stretch curiosity into action. The same drive may carry our descendants outward not only to live but to learn, to participate in the cosmos rather than remain hidden. To become a voyager of flesh and metal is to accept that exile itself can be meaningful, that leaving home is not abandonment but expansion. Philosophically, this vision fuses machine and human into a single destiny. Voyager represents endurance without life. We represent life without endurance. Together, they suggest a future where both fuse, beings, resilient as machines, yet dreaming as humans. In this synthesis lies the possibility that the legacy of Voyager is not only symbolic, but preparatory. It was the first step, the prototype not only of spacecraft, but of us, transformed humanity, learning how to live as Voyagers. Thus, the future may echo the past. Just as Voyager sails beyond the heliosphere, so too may we. Just as it carries a record of its makers, so may we carry our culture, our myths, our songs into the night. We may one day become what Voyager already is. Wanderers without destination, voyagers without return, emissaries of Earth, sailing forever between the stars. The infinite dialogue. Every conversation begins with a first word. For humanity's dialogue with the cosmos, Voyager may well be that word. Its faint signal, its golden record, its silent passage into interstellar space, these are not complete statements, but openings, the first sentence in what could become an infinite dialogue. Voyager does not answer questions, it asks them. It does not conclude, it begins. The metaphor is profound. Conversation implies relationship, even when the other party is absent. When we launched Voyager, we were not only studying planets or testing technology, we were speaking outward, addressing the universe itself. Here we are, the spacecraft declares, not in arrogance but in invitation. It carries not threats but music, not conquest but greetings. It is the gentlest beginning imaginable, a voice that says simply, "We wish to be known." Of course, the cosmos has not answered. The silence is vast, unbroken, stretching across the billions of kilometers Voyager has traveled. Yet silence is not absence of dialogue, it is part of it. To speak without reply is still to begin, still to establish a rhythm. Humanity has spoken. Now the universe listens, or not. Perhaps in 1,000,000 years another intelligence will find the golden record. Perhaps no one will. Either way, the first word has been spoken. The dialogue has begun. The contrast between fragility and aspiration is striking. Voyager is small, its power fading, its voice faint, yet its meaning is expansive, audacious. A machine no larger than a delivery van carries with it the claim that humanity belongs in conversation with the cosmos. Against the immensity of galaxies, that claim is almost absurd, and yet it is real. In this tension lies the essence of the infinite dialogue, humility joined to boldness, fragility joined to endurance. Philosophically, this conversation is not only external, but internal. Voyager speaks to the stars, but it also speaks back to us. The very act of sending it forced us to ask, what do we want to say? What sounds, what images, what fragments of ourselves are worth carrying into eternity? In this sense, Voyager is The beginning not only of a cosmic dialogue, but of a human one, a reflection on what it means to be a species capable of speaking at all. It reminds us that communication is not merely about reception, it is about expression, about the courage to declare meaning even when silence is the only reply. And so, Voyager becomes both emissary and poet. Its presence in interstellar space is a line of verse in the greater poem of existence, one that others may one day read or may never see, yet still matters because it was written. The infinite dialogue does not require completion, it requires only continuation. Future mission, starships, probes, signals will extend this conversation. Voyager is the first word, but not the last. Each act of exploration adds another phrase, another line, another chapter in a dialogue that stretches toward eternity. Thus, the legacy of Voyager is not only scientific discovery or symbolic endurance. It is the beginning of speech on a cosmic scale. It teaches us that even the smallest, faintest word can echo forever if it is spoken with intent. And whether or not the universe replies, the dialogue has meaning because it shows that humanity is more than survival, more than struggle. We are a species that dares to speak into the infinite night. Voyager is our first sentence. The story of the dialogue is only just beginning. The last signal. One day, perhaps soon, perhaps within the span of our own lives, the faint whisper from Voyager will fall silent. Its plutonium heart, already weakened by decades of decay, will no longer generate enough power to keep its instruments alive. The transmitters will fail, the antenna will no longer beam its coded pulses toward Earth, and the spacecraft that has spoken to us faithfully since 1977 will vanish into silence. For the first time in half a century, humanity will no longer hear Voyager's voice. That moment will mark an ending of sorts. For decades, the Deep Space Network has strained to hear it, tuning into signals weaker than a falling snowflake. Each transmission carried science, yes, but also reassurance. Voyager still endures, Voyager still remembers. When the last signal ceases, we will lose not only data, but connection. It will feel like a farewell, the last goodbye of a companion who has traveled farther than any other, a friend whose voice fades into the static of eternity. And yet the end of communication is not the end of the journey. Though Earth will no longer hear it, Voyager will continue. It will drift as it always has, across the interstellar dark, its antenna still outstretched, its golden record still gleaming faintly in starlight. The silence will be ours, not its. For while the spacecraft can no longer speak, it will not stop moving. Its path is eternal, its exile unbroken, its voyage unending. The journey outlasts the voice. This contrast between communication and continuation is essential. The signal is finite, the motion is infinite. The spacecraft's voice belongs to us, its builders and listeners, tied to the limits of our technology and our time. Its journey belongs to the cosmos, written into the laws of momentum and gravity, unbounded by our lifespans. Voyager will stop being a speaking machine and will become a silent traveler, carrying its story wordlessly into futures beyond our imagining. There is poignancy in this transition. For half a century, Voyager has been both emissary and correspondent, sending back reports from beyond the frontier. Its silence will mark the shift from present tense to past tense, from science to myth. It will no longer tell us what it sees. It will become what we imagine it sees, and perhaps that is fitting. Every great journey eventually leaves the realm of history and enters the realm of story. Voyager's last signal will mark that crossing. Philosophically, the silence is not tragedy, but transformation. It reminds us that communication is never the whole of meaning. A loved one's words may fade, but the memory of their journey remains. Voyager's data will end, but its presence will endure. It will carry our songs, our greetings, our ambition into interstellar night long after our ears can no longer hear them. Its silence is not erasure, but continuation. a reminder that meaning persists even when words fail. Thus, the last signal will not be an end, but a threshold. It will be the moment when Voyager ceases to be a machine of science and becomes fully a vessel of memory, a relic of our ambition, a myth sailing on forever. The whisper will cease, but the journey will not. And in that silence perhaps lies the most eloquent message of all, that what we set in motion can outlast us, that the story continues even when the voice is gone. A machine that became myth. In the beginning, Voyager was an object: aluminum, copper, titanium, circuits and wires. It was designed with precision, tested with rigor, launched with fire. It was, in the most literal sense, a tool, a spacecraft built to extend human senses into realms our bodies could never reach. But with time, as its cameras dimmed and its instruments fell silent one by one, Voyager became something more than the object. It became story. And story is the threshold where machines cross into myth. The difference is subtle yet profound. Objects can be measured, repaired, or discarded. Stories cannot. They live in memory, in imagination, in the retelling of significance. Voyager's material reality is finite. Its circuits will fail. Its record will be scarred by dust. Its antenna will drift forever mute. But its story, the tale of a machine that left its makers behind and journeyed into the stars, has already slipped the bounds of time. It no longer requires Voyager to speak. It only requires us to remember. The contrast between object and story mirrors the contrast between science and myth. Science is about function, trajectories, data, measurements. Myth is about meaning, why we care, why we dream, why we reach. Voyager began as science, as object. It ends as myth, as story. Its legacy will not be the precise plasma densities it recorded, but the image of a machine carrying the songs of Earth into eternity. It will be remembered not for what it measured, but for what it meant. And what it meant is astonishing. In Voyager, humanity found a mirror for itself: ambition, curiosity, fragility, endurance. We built it not only to see other worlds, but to say something about our own, that we long to be known, that we dare to speak into silence, that we accept exile as the price of wonder. The golden record, the pale blue dot photograph, the faint radio whispers, all of these are symbols, and symbols are the language of myth. Voyager, once a machine, has become a myth that tells us who we are. Consider how future generations may speak of it. They may not know the technicalities of RTGs or spectrometers, but they will know the story that in the 20th century, a species on a small blue planet built a messenger, and that messenger still sails the stars. They will speak of it as we speak of Odysseus or Gilgamesh or Prometheus, not as fact alone, but as legend, a tale of exile, endurance, and longing. Myth does not require literal accuracy, it requires resonance. Voyager resonates. This transformation reveals something essential about humanity. We do not build only to function, we build to signify. Our greatest creations endure not because of their utility, but because of the meanings we inscribe into them. Voyager is not just hardware, it is our offering to eternity. In it, science and myth intertwine, object and story fuse, machine becomes legend. Philosophically, this is Voyager's final gift. It shows us that myths are not only inherited from the past, they are also created in the present. We are still a myth-making species, still capable of turning metal into memory, silence into song, exile into epic. Voyager proves that even in an age of technology, we still dream in mythic terms. Thus, Voyager's destiny is not merely to drift, it is to endure as story. The object will fade, the machine will rustless wander, but the myth will live. In the end, we will not say, "There was once a spacecraft." We will say, "There was once a Voyager who left its home, who carried the memory of a world, and who still sails the stars." Silence as message. When Voyager's final whisper fades, many will mourn the silence. No more telemetry, no more faint pulses across the abyss, no more voice from the exile we once launched. Yet perhaps the silence itself is the message. For decades, we strained to hear a signal weaker than a snowflake's fall, listening with immense patience and care. When that voice is gone, what remains is the listening, the discipline of attention, the reverence for faintness, the humility to acknowledge how fragile connection truly is. Silence has always carried meaning. In music, rests are as vital as notes. In conversation, pauses hold weight equal to words. Voyager teaches this on a cosmic scale. Its signal was extraordinary, but its silence may be greater still. In the quiet, we are reminded that the universe is not ours to command. It is ours to hear if we choose. The absence of voice draws us inward, compelling us to reflect on why we listen at all. The contrast is striking. Voyager began as an act of speech, a machine built to speak for Earth, to send data, to carry greetings. Yet its end is an act of silence. The transition from voice to quiet is not defeat, but transformation, revealing that meaning lies not only in what is said, but also in what remains unsaid. The silence of Voyager will not be emptiness, it will be invitation. Invitation to what? To listen more deeply to each other, to our planet, to the universe itself. In a cosmos where distances are unimaginable, listening is our first and most profound act of participation. We may not yet travel the stars, but we can hear their light, their whispers, their echoes. Voyager's silence reminds us to value this attentiveness, to recognize that patience and humility are the foundations of discovery. Philosophically, the silence is also mercy. If the universe is indeed quiet, then perhaps it is granting us the space to grow before we are heard. If no alien responds, the silence becomes a sanctuary where we can learn to listen to the fragility of Earth, to the brevity of life, to the resonance of wonder. Voyager's silence, drifting between stars, becomes a mirror for our own need to listen before we speak again. The spacecraft's final gift may not be its voice, but its quiet. In the end, silence can speak more profound than words. It can remind us that absence is not emptiness, that endings can be beginnings, and that listening itself is a form of reverence. Voyager will vanish from our instruments, but it will not vanish from our story. Its silence will echo as message, that we are called not only to speak into the cosmos, but to listen patiently, humbly, endlessly, for whatever may answer, or for the quiet itself.